I am sitting here with Sho Baraka. And Sho, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, you are, I think, best known as a hip hop artist and a writer, but I asked you to join me here today because you are also a father. And so I wondered if you would just introduce yourself by telling us about your family.
Yes, I am a father of three. One is 20 years old. That's our daughter. And then I have two boys who are on the autism spectrum, 19 and 13. And so I've been married for 22 years now. And as you may know, the journey has had its highs, its lows. But the one thing that has been consistent is just God's provision and
Hmm.
his love for us, which has cultivated in me a heart of compassion and peace over the years. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride, but I thank God for it.
Oh, well, thank you for just that vision of the journey,
Yeah.
that you've kind of landed in a place of peace and compassion. But at least I have a 19-year-old with Down syndrome, and similarly feel like I've landed in a place of unbelievable gratitude for not just
Hmm.
for her, but for our family as it is.
Yeah.
And that was not where I started 19 years ago. So,
Yeah. And sometimes you start at a good place, you divert off course and you come back and then you divert again, and I'm sure we'll dive into that, but
yeah.
I think it's just about seasons and understanding what tools and resources are needed in that season because you can't
Hmm.
bring old tools into new seasons.
Hmm. Yeah, I would love to talk more about that. Maybe just to give again listeners a little bit of a context for you. You have a song that came out a long time ago now. Words 2006 is the name of it, and you write about the experience of being a poet and a songwriter. So someone who's kind of filled with words, with
Mhm.
who's given sons who don't use a lot of words to communicate. So can you just yeah, tell us about that experience and what that has meant for you and for your family?
Yeah, so that song, the impetus for that song was actually um, catalyzed by another song, which I wrote some years before that, which was the first time I had ever really written about being a father with a child with special needs. And at that time, I only had one boy with special
Mm,
needs. And so there was this lament, if you will, this digital diary about the answers that I did not have. And the song's called I Ain't Got the Answers.
mhm,
And it's a song I did in collaboration with a friend named Propaganda who writes about his like raising his daughter who is neurotypical and just the struggles he had. And so he
mm,
wanted me to write a song about what does it mean to raise somebody with, on the autism spectrum. And I wrote it and I was kind of amazed not only by what the Lord deposited into me to communicate, but also the responses. And so after many
mm,
years of people just really just sharing their heart and being moved by that offering, I felt like compelled to just write another song that kind of dived a little deeper into, as you said, what does it mean to have a lot of words, but to interact with young boys who don't have a lot of words and they don't communicate love in the way that I typically expect love to be communicated. And so it
mhm,
taught me a few things. Is just how love is communicated in different ways, how we have to seek love in different ways, how we have to interpret love in different ways, and how sometimes words don't mean much.
mm,
And so I think that is in a lot of ways the title of the film of our lives for people who have kids or relatives, loved ones who are nonverbal, as they label
mhm,
it. And what does it look like to evaluate love differently from what we've expected love or how we expected love to be communicated in our previous lives, if you will. And so that song was poignant, powerful, not only for me, as oftentimes I'm sure as you write books, you realize you're not just ministering to the other, you're ministering to yourself.
mhm,
The Lord gives this these words of encouragement are for you first, hopefully, and then for other people. And I intentionally wanted to open the song up with both something that I thought would create great solidarity, but also great dissonance. So the
Mm,
song starts off with this young boy having a just a breakdown, and it
mhm.
sounds like many of our kids when they have breakdowns. It's
Yeah.
just unintelligible sounds because because you can't really make out the words, and it's just, but they're agonizing. And so in a lot of ways that's kind of like the a pillar of what the song is communicating. Like, even in our lack of verbal communication, like we all share common pain. We know when someone's in pain, we know when someone's
Mm.
in turmoil. And so hopefully the listener can find some solidarity in that, and it shakes them up and disturbs them to the point where they can start to really lean into the song.
So, as you've learned about communication without at least lots and lots of words, what does that look like for you with your sons? What does communication look like?
It's taught me that I can't love on on my conditions alone. Right? I
Mm,
think, what is that book called? The Five Lung Languages taught us
yeah.
about, not only how we like to receive love, but how the people we love like to receive love. And oftentimes, if you are a person who has words of affirmation, you give words of affirmation.
Hmm.
And you expect everybody should be content because I love the words of affirmation and that's the way I give it. So you should be excited about the fact that I'm affirming you through words. And so it's taught me that I have to learn different language, like love languages, that I'm probably deficient in. And one of my boys is definitely just quality time. He just wants to be around me. He doesn't want to talk to me.
Hmm.
he, and when he does want to talk to me, he wants to talk to me in what they call, like, he scripts. He does scripting, and it's like he wants me to rehearse lines, as we call, like, run lines through movies he likes or cartoons he watches. And so that's the way I love on him. And he smiles when I do it, and he just loves it. And sometimes he just wants to be around me when he's doing his thing, and I just try to make time to be close to him. Uh, I forgot actually what the question was. Oh,
Just
so
how do you
yeah.
communicate with them if it's not through the kind of what you would have expected? Yeah.
Yeah. I had to also let go of some of the ways in which parents like to live vicariously through their kids,
Mm,
and truly, truly learn how to allow them to develop their own interest and sit with them in that. And so one of my boys likes NASCAR, and I'm not the NASCAR type, but hey, sometimes I'll just try to sit there and enjoy it with him. Or he loves construction vehicles. He loves
mhm.
kind of like all types of, I guess, city vehicles, whether it be ambulances, fire trucks, police cars. And so anytime there's one, we point it out. Trains, he loves trains. So there are things like that. You just find a way to enter into their world
Yeah.
and investigate. And I try my best, even though they aren't the best with, I guess you can say, reciprocating conversation. I don't assume that they don't understand, because I do
Mhm.
think that is something that we
Yes.
devalue in them. We act like they don't have comprehension, and they do.
Yeah.
And so that's why early in our marriage, our wife and I told us, realize that we can't talk about them around them as if they're not able to comprehend what we're
Mhm,
saying.
mhm.
And so I do talk to them. I have conversations with them as if they're young, either young adults or teenagers. And even if they don't understand immediately, I'll just kind of continue to talk to them. And the fascinating thing I've found out is that they comprehend and they sponge a lot more than we think. Um,
Mhm.
and oftentimes, I think they know that our expectations for them are low, and so they only perform to those particular levels because they know they can get away with it.
Yeah.
And as they get older, they test that patience. And so I've found that my son, especially my oldest, he knows way more than he lets on. And so I try to have conversations with him. I try to talk to him. I try to engage with him on that level. Find their interests, tell jokes with them. I find I've learned how my oldest son likes to joke. My youngest son likes to play tag and run around the house. So I do that with him. So it's things like that.
So how did you I'm guessing, I mean, there was some movement within you that got you to a place of saying, "You know what? I'm going to sit and watch NASCAR," as opposed to I'm going to change my son so that he wants to watch what I want to watch, or
Hmm.
he's clearly not interested in engaging with me, so I'm going to go do something productive right now, right? Like how did you get to
Right.
a place of being able to essentially surrender to like sitting and watching NASCAR?
I can't say that there was this epiphany moment. I just think it was a there had to be a slow, perpetual like chipping away at the hardness of my heart and
Hmm.
realizing like I'm not going to win this battle through force. I'm just not
Mhm.
like there's I can't force him to change. And I think this is also something that I probably learned through marriage, like in knowing that my wife and I are different types of people, and me just telling her she should do this because I like it or I enjoy it. That that doesn't win people over. And that's also not service and love. And so what does it mean to say, you know what, in spite of your affection for a particular thing, I am still going to not only love you, but I'm going to appreciate you, and then also try to listen to you and be sensitive to what where there could be negotiation. And I think it's just over time I just found myself saying, you know what, my son's not going to like the things I like, and that's fine. But I just want to be in proximity to them because that's the first
Mhm.
steps I think towards love and understanding and
Yeah.
compassion is just putting yourself in proximity. And so yeah, and over time, we found not only can I tolerate NASCAR, but he can also tolerate certain types of like they've watched. So we'll watch like certain TV shows or movies, and then we'll realize later that our sons are watching it without us, and we're like, "See, they're paying attention, they're paying,
Yeah,
but
I love
they
that.
like it on their time, you know." So
Huh. I really love that. I heard you in an interview with our friend Catherine Wolf a few months ago, and you talked about, I'm not sure which one of your sons, but one of them having just a lot of like breakdowns, like hard, violent episodes, and now being a kid who's like super calm. And I wanted
yes,
to ask, and you talked about a change in you, I think, that had to do with
yes,
that change in him. And I suspect that there are many parents who are in a similar spot where they, again, might be having trouble communicating with their kids, behavioral challenges, wanting peace in their families. Like, can you just talk about that experience, which again, I would imagine happened over time, and not saying, here's exactly what you should do, steps A, B, and C. But at the same time, I think it can be so helpful to hear other parents' stories, especially when a change has gone from a place of like violence and distress to peace.
yeah. So this is absolutely true, and I yeah, you're right. Different people probably need different types of resources and different therapies, et cetera, et cetera. But I think for us, there was a few things that happened that really turned the tide in our son's behavior. And as you said, a lot of it had to do with me, but I was at a point where I was ready to kill the show boy. Like this boy
Mm,
was, he was a Tasmanian devil in our house. If he didn't get what he wanted, if he
mm,
got any kind of dysregulated, it was just so hard to just watch him throw himself up against walls, to bang his head against things, just fling himself, even in the car if we passed the McDonald's.
mm,
And I was like, look, I want McDonald's every day too, but I can't just throw myself around on them, you know. So anyway, it got to a point where we went to the barbershop. He threw a fit in the middle of a barbershop, and I was just so embarrassed. People were looking at me. I felt like I was the worst parent ever. And I remember that I met this gentleman who was trying his best to try to get me involved in an organization he had. Long story short, I went to this gathering that was in Birmingham. It was an organization called Culture City. He introduced me to a doctor named Marion Blank, Dr. Marion Blank. And she sat with us for about 2 hours and coached us
mm.
through different ways to regulate him, to de-escalate his behavior. But the one thing she said to me is like, Father, you have to understand you can't address him in your anger. And I had realized there was a lot of anger in me. And I think some of it wasn't just anger from having a son on the spectrum, but it was just anger I had growing up.
Mm,
And if somebody addresses me with aggression and violence, I responded with aggression and violence. And I realized not only as someone who loved Jesus, that probably wasn't the way that I should respond, but also as someone who's responding to his child. Like I shouldn't allow my child to lead me towards anger. And so
mm,
she said, you have to learn how to approach him as a calm, confident voice. And so that was the first thing that I did is say, hey, Zakai, like, brother, buddy, you got to calm down. You got to chill. How can I help you? But then she taught me how to restrain him in ways that would protect him and protect me.
mm,
So after many, many, many days of this, over a period of I think like 6 months, he went from somebody who would. And the other thing I realized is that she communicated is like he's not just mad for any reason. He's most likely upset and frustrated because he can't communicate his desires and his needs right now. So
mhm,
try to figure out how to investigate what is he upset about. Like it may not just be he wants McDonald's. It may be something greater than that. It may be, and you
mhm,
have to talk him through this. And so, over about a period of 6 months, we found that his behaviors began to subside. He stopped throwing himself against the walls. He stopped banging his head. He even like stopped whining as much. It was just so miraculous. And of course, I think prayer and fasting and all that stuff. I don't want to say it like as if that was some ancillary stuff. I think all of that helped because it worked on our hearts as well. It worked on our hearts
mhm,
as we were making these requests to the Lord. But I also think it helped him to sleep better. It helped
mm,
him to be comfortable in his own rooms and his space because for a while he would only want to sleep in our bed. So it was a transforming thing that not only brought peace to our son, but peace to our household, peace to our
mm,
marriage. It's such a beautiful thing. So I say all that to say research books by individuals. I recommend Marion Blank is somebody who's written a lot about this. As she is I think she's like a behavioral analysis or a behavioral therapist, better yet. So yeah, there are different things that we try to regulate in his diet better, and so there were different things that we felt like contributed to a holistic behavior change.
mm. That's amazing, and I really appreciate all of those details. I want to ask one more question and then try to kind of summarize some of what we've said, which is just quickly. You've also mentioned that you've been married for 22 years, and that I know it is just challenging for any of us to raise children and stay married and kind of in love with each other
Right.
and loving towards each other. And I'm just wondering, especially for lots of families who perhaps some have had marriages that have not, made it, others who are in marriages and struggling, what has helped you and Patrice to love each other well?
Lots of respite, and I know that's a luxury that everybody can afford, but I think
Hmm.
you can afford it when you have friends and family members who care about the things you're wrestling with. You have
Hmm.
to admit when you need rest. You need to
Hmm.
admit when you're struggling. You need to be very clear, not only to your spouse, but to your friends and family members. Just ask for help. Never be ashamed to ask for help.
Hmm.
And one of the things we realized early in our marriage is if we loved each other as best to our abilities, as long as we could, we would provide the best living situation for our kids. And so, despite what our kids are going through, we always have to realize our marriage is utterly important, not only for our thriving and our flourishing, but for the thriving and flourishing of our kids as well.
Mm,
And so um, I think it's simple. And I kind of talked about this at the start of our interview. The other thing is that we have to realize that as our marriage is going through different seasons, our children are going through different seasons, and we have to acknowledge that. As you have a 19-year-old, I have a 19-year-old, and the reality is that they're different at 19 than they were maybe at 16 or
yeah.
15. Hormones are starting to kind of like get crazy now. And then you have to wrestle with this concept of will they always be alone?
Hmm.
But you still have this fact that they're attracted to people. So there's that. Now, as an adult, I have to raise an adult in my household,
Mhm.
which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And so, but then there will be no school system for them pretty soon. And so, what does that mean for us? We won't be empty nesters. What does that mean for us?
Mhm.
And so, you have to be thinking, you have to think through all of this with, you can't be afraid to address it. And that's the other thing is oftentimes I think fear handicaps us from being proactive. And you have to
Mhm.
be proactive in the sense of like, man, the Lord has not given me a spirit of fear, but a power and love and sound mind. And so, how do we address this before there's chaos? You know, I don't want to be the tyranny of the urgent running around when something happens. Just let's be proactive. And so there's trying to just manage ourselves as seasons come, but also what seasons do we expect to come, and how can we best prepare for that?
Mm. I like to, when I'm interviewing people, just write down some of the things along the way that you have said. And so I'm going to read back a few just as we come to a close, that I think are really helpful for any parent. As you said, some of these would be helpful at different seasons, but you did mention assuming that they understand more than they can
Mhm.
necessarily communicate back. You mentioned the power of proximity, of just literally
Mhm.
coming alongside and being with, which I think for any of us as parents to just slow down and be with our kids is a really just good reminder. It's something we all can do, but so often we rush ahead to the next thing. You mentioned just being calm and confident with our bodies and our voices, and again, that's not something we always can do, but it's something we
Absolutely.
can pray for and work towards, right? You
Right.
also mentioned like the assuming the desire that they have to communicate, even if they can't, right?
Mhm.
And then finally, just that last idea of just admitting need and asking for help, and those just that whole list of things, which again I think will be relevant for some people in different seasons, but they are things that we all can do. And sure, absolutely, like look up Marion Blank. Is that what you said her name was? Like there are
Yes.
other people who can help us in these very particular ways, and we need that.
Absolutely.
But we also there are these like yeah, ways of being that we can all practice that I think you've given us a glimpse into. Is there anything you would want to add just as we come to a close?
The other tool and resource that Marion Blank developed, which changed our boys, was a site called ASD Reading, and
Mm,
basically, it's a site that helps them with like sentence structure, syntax, helps them learn how to type.
mm,
It's wonderful, and I think it's we haven't used it in many years, but for a while, it was a wonderful, I guess, miscellaneous resource alongside the school that they went to. And I saw it help cultivate them in ways that I think probably would have taken me a year or 2 years. So,
mm. Well, again, thank you for both these like very specific practical resources as well as these more almost broad
mhm.
just ways of being that we can all take steps towards. I really
Amen.
appreciate your wisdom and just getting a little glimpse of your family.
Thank you for having me, and peace be unto you and your family and your daughter.